There was nothing in the darkness of space. Nothing. There was just us. Just human beings, and whatever else we brought with us from Earth. Over thousands of years, humanity spread across the entire galaxy, and not once did we find any life more complex than an amoeba. The silence was deafening. All those planets, billions and billions of them, and there was nothing. Our ancestors asked themselves, way back on ancient Earth, why they weren't able to pick up signals from extraterrestrial life. Well, now we knew. It was because there weren't any. There was just nothing. We kept asking, but we never got an answer. There weren't even any ruins where intelligent life might once have lived. Just dead planet after dead planet, and maybe 1 in 100,000 with a biological sludge that was the best the galaxy had been able to come up with the exception of Earth. That must be the answer, that Earth was the exception, the subatomic edge of the curve. Why should it surprise us? We knew from our very first explorations outside our home planet that there was no life anywhere else in the solar system. We also knew that it took almost 4 billion years for the Earth to produce multicellular life. That is a long time. It always made sense that complex organisms were just a fluke that was unlikely to reoccur elsewhere. And of course, there was the basic paradox. If life is out there, why isn't it here already? The galaxy is big, but it's also very old. Even limited to light speed, it only takes 50,000 years to cross, and it's been around for billions of years. Much, much more time than was needed for another sentient species to have reached every corner of the galaxy. So where were they? Well, maybe they just decided to stay home, and not send any messages, and not do anything to their star that could be seen from a distance, like building a sphere around it to capture its energy, even though, statistically, they should have had millions of years with which to do something that would leave a visible mark. The logical answer was always that there just wasn't anything out there. Yet still, we'd held out hope right until the last star system was catalogued that somewhere, somehow, there'd be something like us, aware of its own existence. But finally we had to accept the unpalatable truth. The galaxy was devoid of any intelligent life apart from humans. It's one thing to suspect that the lack of evidence means there's nothing out there. It's another thing to know it for certain. We went to the heavens and found them empty, and no amount of prayer or belief could put God back on his throne. It was just us, alone, forever. That broke us a little. From as far back as records went, human beings had speculated about making contact with alien intelligence. What would they be like? Would they be helpful or hostile? Wise or in need of our guidance? We wrote entire sagas of wars that would never happen, and revelations we would never experience. And when the last hope was finally snuffed out, we asked ourselves, what now? We had all the material comforts we could ask for. We had faced all the challenges that were there for us to face. There was no reason for us to think that we would find anything different outside our home galaxy. There was really nothing left to do now but sit and wait for the heat death of the universe. We don't know who the first ones to abandon humanity were. We don't even know for sure if it was done by accident or by design. All we know is that suddenly, the aliens we'd spent so many millennia searching for appeared, in places we knew from bitter experience were devoid of any natural life. It didn't take long to work out that the 8-limbed, many-eyed aliens shared too many segments of their genome with us to be a coincidence. Someone had deliberately changed their offspring into something barely recognizable as springing from the same branch of life as humans. Even the aliens themselves didn't know if it had been done out of necessity to adapt to an unforeseen disaster some isolated branch of humanity had suffered, or just because our ancestors hadn't been able to bear the vast, unending silence. The former was unlikely. Humanity had the technology to face anything the galaxy had to throw at us. In all the thousands of years since we had left Earth, there simply hadn't been any need for us to evolve further. Perhaps that had been our mistake. Without selective pressure, our species had remained broadly similar from one end of our galaxy-spanning civilization to the other. It had always been forbidden to create intelligent life from scratch. Engineering a self-aware species to satisfy our curiosity seemed like an act of hubris too far, something that could have serious unintended consequences. But by altering themselves, the aliens who weren't really aliens had found a loophole. Once we realized it could be done, everyone was doing it. Soon we had offshoots that swam in the seas of ocean worlds like dolphins, or soared through the air like birds. Civilizations sprang up that were founded by people who looked more like insects than their human ancestors, while in the skies of other worlds there drifted vast organic dirigibles, whose brains alone were the size of a blue whale, and who used no technology at all. The galaxy was silent no longer. Every corner and crevice teemed with diversity. There were consequences for this, of course. Not all of humanity's subspecies could live comfortably alongside each other. We revelled in the new cultures and philosophies the breakdown of uniformity brought, but we also had to face the consequences that came with that. Divisiveness, competition, even war. Evolution reasserted itself, in all its ugly glory. For the most part, though, we considered it a price worth paying. We had ventured out into the darkness of space, and we had said, "Let there be light." And although light can sometimes be harsh, and sometimes be too bright, it is still better than the darkness. This is the gift we left to you, human. We scrubbed our presence from Earth, removing all trace of our technology, and seeding a few skeletons and artifacts so that it looked like there had been 100,000 years of continuity between our hunter-gatherer ancestors and those we left behind in our former home when we abandoned it for good. We had outgrown our cradle, but there was no reason it couldn't be passed on to another iteration of humanity. And unlike us, when you venture out into the cosmos, which you must have done if you're reading this message, you will not find it empty. There's a whole galaxy of adventure waiting for you, our distant children, as well as more truths you're just now ready to understand. We envy you the discoveries that await you, all the wonders that were never there for us. But be cautious. We can only promise you that there is more out there to learn, in the darkness that is dark no longer. We cannot promise you will be ready for what you discover, or that it will be ready for you. Still, there's only one way to find out.